want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Mad Men of Masculinity. Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
Good day, Mad Men Mafia.
Good morning, boys and girls.
Why you gotta go
Welcome to the club. I don't know, man. Who knows? Hey, I am Kirk M. Samuels,
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
and we are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's
So
right.
big time. I got some questions for you, man. Now,
You got questions.
I got a
I
couple
need,
of questions for you.
I need answers, man. I don't need questions. I need answers.
Well, you'll give the answers. Now, I've known you for a hot minute, so I'll probably know the answers to these questions. But just for the audience's sake, let's say I don't know you, and you answer these questions like I don't know you. So, first, Mr. Kirk M. Samuels, have you ever had a moment where you felt like you weren't living up to your potential? You felt like your dreams kind of fell through, or you had a rock bottom moment?
Yeah, the first 40 years of my life. Pretty
So that'll be
much.
a yes.
Absolutely, man. I've had some major rock bottoms, some major everything you're talking about.
Right on. Now, what came from that? Like, do you think you're better from that experience, or you think you're worse?
Absolutely better, man. The fire like burned off a whole lot of impurities, man. And so having gone through the fire, I'm way better now. I'm cooked.
Okay. Now, the last and final question: do you like pro wrestling?
Well, let me tell you, brother. Woo! I'm a kid stealing, wheeling, and dealing, private jet flying, alligator wearing some of my gun.
That's
Yeah,
what I
you.
thought.
Yes.
That's what I thought. So today on the show, ladies and gentlemen, we got the one and only Jared Ganem. He is a true potential coach, and I want to get into his story. I don't even want to like really, hype him up too much because he's got one of those stories I think the audience is gonna love. I know we're gonna love. I was doing my research on him, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's one of us. He does his thing. And so, Mr. Jared Ganem, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks
What's
for
up,
having me.
Jared?
Pleasure to be
Happening,
here,
brother?
Kirk, Jason. Good to see you. Love the impression too. By the way, it's great.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
It's good like that.
Woo!
Let me put you in the right spot. There we go. Now you're in the middle. You're in the right spot. So, Jared, thank you for being on the show. Can we get a little background on you? I know I was doing my research on you. I was listening to your story on another podcast, and I just think for the guys listening to the show, for the Mad Men Mafia, hearing a bit about what you went through and what you're doing, because I mean that what you went through and then how you got to where you are is like I think the blueprint of how most of us go through it. So, tell us about. I mean, you were a pro wrestler.
Yeah, for sure. So I never thought I'd be helping people out. I never thought I'd be, coaching men the way I am. My dream when I was 5 was to be a pro wrestler. So jumping off the top rope, smash people with chairs. So not like ending suffering. I guess you'd say more like I was creating it out there in the world, right? But there's an autobiography when I was a kid. You guys know who Mick Foley is? Mankind, Cactus Jack. I was like 10.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote an autobiography, and it was this rags to riches story about, the guy that nobody thought he was going to make it. He was kind of an outcast in school, kind of, the nice guy, not super popular, not really a nerd either. And he followed his dream all the way to WWE and then wrestled in Madison Square Garden, won the heavyweight championship. And I was like, you know what? I think that's what I want to do because I was relating to that at the time. So I went full speed ahead. I went all into it and gave up like all the like homecoming dances and everything like that. And I invested everything I could into becoming a pro wrestler. And it took me a while, but about 5 to maybe 8 years later, I had my first tryout with WWE in my hometown arena with my mom and dad in the crowd, the same one I used to go to. And they're like, Mom, I want to wrestle in there someday. It was really awesome. I got the opportunity to do that. So I wrestled for quite a while and it didn't really work out the way I hoped. I really hoped that it would. But that kind of brought me into personal development. Like what Kirk was saying before, he's like, whatever happened to him made him who he is now, right? And you can only connect the dots looking backwards. So I'm very grateful that it didn't work out the way that it did because it would have been a very different life if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think for most of us we have our dreams and we think things should go a certain way. We're like, I'm gonna do this is gonna be my thing. Like I was, in the Air Force, and I thought that was gonna be my career because I grew up in an army family, and then that didn't work out. And so that kind of led me down through all kinds of different spirals of things. And I just kind of bounced around for a while. And then wasn't until really 29, 30 where it was like, oh, maybe I should go this way. This really interests me. And then it kind of led down this path of self-discovery and stuff. And I know Kirk has a similar story where he's like, if it hadn't been the way it was, he wouldn't be where he is now.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think you just nailed it right there. You said, what was it, airline pilot, or what were the different things you said, occupation wise?
I was in the Air Force, and I basically did that because I grew up in an army family, so military was just a way of life. So it was like, well, that's what I'm gonna do. And then,
Yeah,
young, dumb, and stupid, got out, and it was like, oh, well, now what? And so that led down all kinds of random paths.
that makes a ton of sense. I'm happy you mentioned that, because that, for example, that's an occupation, but that's also an identity. Like, I am in the military. I am a pilot.
Mhm.
I'm sure people that are I've worked with people that are, former football players. I am a football player. Wrestling wasn't a hobby. It's I am a wrestler. You know what I mean? And so I think we all heard about this before. Men have to have a purpose. I'm sure
Mhm.
you've heard of that as well. But what happens when your purpose is an occupation or an identity and you don't do that anymore, right? All
Yeah.
of a sudden you lose your purpose, you lose your identity. You're like, well, if I'm not that, who am I anymore? And that kind of puts you in that dark night of the soul. Have you ever been there before? It's like you're not really quite sure who you are, what you're going to do. And when wrestling didn't work out for me, what happened was I made it all the way to WWE. I had these tryouts, and the head of WWE talent development, he pulled me backstage and he goes, "Hey kid, I could hire you right now, and you'd be a star." And I'm like, "Oh, this is great. He's gonna bring me on." And then he stopped, and it felt like an eternity. And he goes, "But I'm not going to do that." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "'Cause you hope that I hire you, kid. You don't actually own the fact that you feel like you deserve to be here. You're hoping that I hire you. I can't teach you
Mm.
confidence." I was like, "Man, that's crazy." And here's the wild thing. I was confident, charismatic, everything out there in the ring. But when I came backstage, I was meek, mild, Clark Kent, that type of thing. I'm like, "No, when you put me out there, I can really turn it on." And he's like, "No, but I need you to be that killer all the time." And it kind of messed with my head. But I was reading a book called The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman. You ever hear of
Mm.
this book before?
No, that's
And
going on my list.
one of the things that he says, he goes, Superman and Clark Kent, who's the real alter ego and who's the real guy?
Mm.
I was like, interesting. Clark
Mm.
Kent's the mask that he put on
Yeah.
to fit in. And so when that happened to me, I was like, wait a minute. So what if there's no difference between the guy that's out there in the ring and the guy backstage? What if there doesn't have to be? And I think that happens sometimes where people feel like they have a version of them that's the real them, but they don't know how to let it out, or there's something in the way. Well, whenever they say that, what that really means is there's a version of them that's free from the conditioning, that's free from playing small, that's free from trying to fit in everywhere or tone themselves down just to be palatable. So what I found is it's not about adding more stuff to you or trying to force yourself to be something you're not, but really it's all about getting rid of all the stuff that isn't supposed to be there in the first place and bringing your real self out to the surface.
Man, I don't know if this, man, you just kind of shook me for a minute right there, man, because now I'm like, ooh, that'll preach. When you talk about who's the real alter ego, I almost wonder if an argument surely can be made that to your point that Clark Kent was Superman's alter ego. I mean, he was Superman or Kal-El before he was Clark Kent, right? I mean, he was,
Mhm.
he was the Superman, and I think, I wonder if as men, I mean, and this is before we kind of get off into, too much into the journey here. I think us as men, maybe we don't realize that a lot of times, to your point, we might play small so that we don't have to live up to the expectations day in and day out of being Superman. Maybe we play Clark Kent more than often, more than we should, or more than we need to, as an excuse or as an escape. I don't know if that goes a whole different direction or what, man. But I'm like, man, that just kind of shook me. That woke me up a little bit.
No, I agree entirely. And it's either that or they put on a mask to be ultra alpha, ultra macho, but it's still a mask.
Mhm.
Mhm.
They say the two biggest fears, you've heard this before. It's like fear I'm not enough or I won't be loved. I think for men, it's the third one, which is the fear of not reaching your full potential. But I think it goes even worse than that. It's the fear of not reaching your full potential and knowing you held yourself back.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
how many of us self-sabotage so that we don't actually meet our full potential? I mean, consciously or subconsciously. We get like almost there, or we get there, and then we throw a grenade into our own tent.
Yeah, I mean, we do it just to keep ourselves small, to keep ourselves safe. And I mean, even before we got on, Jared and I were kind of talking about internal family system and some of the internal child work, and that's where it seems like a lot of the stuff comes from. Is like we want to be that guy, but then we self-sabotage because there's a part of us like, no, don't do that, because either you're gonna be responsible or you might get trouble, you might get hurt, you're gonna make people upset. But it's like we play that Clark Kent thing and make ourselves small. I know I do that all the time, where it's like, we got all these things going on, and in the muggle world and the everyday life, you're just like, I'm just a normal dude. I'm just a little muggle like the rest of y'all. I'm not gonna talk about all this cool stuff I got going on over here because I don't want to, offend people or be too big or I don't know, whatever it is. But yeah, so much it resonates so much, Jared, with the playing small just to either keep ourselves safe or to just self-sabotage, so we don't either have to take that responsibility or be who we're supposed to be.
Yeah, I'll give you a perfect example of this, because it's like Tony Robbins, he says the number one force in the human personality is the need to remain consistent with how you define yourself. Does that make sense? The number one force in the human personality is the need to remain consistent with how you define yourself. I agree with that. And I'm going to say it's the need to how you identify yourself unconsciously, because we all have these identities we picked up from our mom, our dad, our caretakers, school teachers, things like that. And pretty soon it's all this osmosis stuff. You didn't even really choose who you were. And so what I find so often is people are, they're 20, 30, 50 years old, and they're not even living authentically who they really are, because they put on all these masks over time to try to fit in. But I had this experience one time. And I was having these WWE tryout matches, and they're either in the arenas or they're more like local college gymnasiums where they're not ran by WWE, but they have people watching you. And do you know who Booker T is? The five-time world heavyweight champion. They were pairing me with Booker T in the main event to test me out. And it's my first time wrestling. Yeah, it was my first time wrestling him. I'm nervous as hell. And all of a sudden, on my way to the building, I get my phone rings. And I pick it up, and it's my girlfriend at the time. This is maybe 2012, 13-ish. And I pick up, and I can hear in the tone of her voice she doesn't want this conversation. And she goes, I just want to let you know that we're breaking up. We're through. And I was like, excuse me? Like, I just saw you 2 days ago. What happened? And she's like, I went on a cruise. It was a booze cruise, and I cheated on you. I'm like, what? So I go to the backstage of this locker room. How do you think I'm walking around? My shoulders are slumped. I'm all depressed. I'm not in a good way. I have to have the biggest match of my life up until this point. And my friends are like, Jared, you got to get it together, because you're going to be on pretty soon. And Booker T's like, come on, sucker, you ready to go? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm good. But I was sweating. I was not in a good way. But then something interesting happened where they played my theme music, and I started hopping up and down, and I started kind of slapping my chest and pouring water on my head. And I'm like, yes, here we go. And I went through the curtain, and I was the most confident man in the universe for about 25 minutes. Nothing could take me down until the match was over, and I walked through the curtain, and it was almost like a portal where my shoulders slumped over and my head went down, and I went right back to being Clark Kent again. But it happened. But it happened so fast.
Yeah.
And it was so dramatic from there to there that I go, wait a minute, why do I only allow myself to be this way there? Why can't I be that way at the gym when I go into the bank to deposit a check? Like, why can't I walk around like that as a date? And it really started having me question, like, well, what's the real identity? What's the real?
And it's sometimes it's a quick trip from zero to hero, and vice versa. And speaking of quick trip, we're gonna take us a break here, man. We're gonna be right back. Mad Men Masculinity on KLDC.
Boom. Nice. I like where it's going. That's
man.
We got the mass, the ego, the true potential,
all that, man.
All that, the purpose. I mean, we talk about that so much.
Yeah. For
That's
sure.
awesome.
All through the lens of pro wrestling. It's so funny.
It's well, what's so interesting about it is this is what's so good about the behind the scenes stuff, because we can talk about this without it having to be edited FCC wise. Like whatever it is, whether it's pro wrestling or military or sports or athlete or whatever, it's like we put on these masks. We're like, oh, that's the real me, and then we take it off. And then we use the other one, or I'm just a nice guy. I remember I was listening to some other podcast you're on. You're talking about No Member's a Nice Guy, and you're like, this book was written about me. I'm like, it's written about me, about him, about all of us.
Yep.
Like even the first chapter, the first two characters in the book are Jason and Heather. My last long-term girlfriend was Heather, and it's like, he did to talk about me.
He's legitimately just talking about you. Yeah.
He's talking about me. All right, you ready?
I got a pretty deep question though for you when we get back.
Yeah,
Jared.
Yeah.
I got a deep question. We're leaping right off of where you just left off.
All right, let's do it.
Mm-hmm. We're back.
Yes, we're back.
We are back. Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City and on the interwebs everywhere.
We're everywhere,
all
baby.
over the place.
Worldwide.
Man, we're talking about just the mask that we have on. Jared's just dropping some he's dropping some knowledge, some wisdom, some perspective. Even from someplace most of us have never been, which is in the world of professional wrestling. Me and my cousin used to put on our underoos and we used to wrestle, upstairs, and we used to come off the dresser and land with the elbow on the top rope and all that kind of stuff, man. But you did it for real, man. And so where we left off, and in the break here, I was like, man, I got a deep question for you, because where we left off, you talked about the way we kind of put on that mask, the way we get ourselves hyped up, we go out the door, we come back, and then all of a sudden we come back, yes, to the big decompression, and then how quickly, in a way, Superman can go back to Clark Kent. So my question to you, man, is, and first of all, we're going to get into, well, not first of all, but we're going to get into a lot of the work that you do, man, and kind of the way you pivoted all of that, and now you take your test and you make it your testimony, and you help a lot of people through that. But my question to you is, what do we do as men when we have to put on a mask because we don't know who and what we're supposed to be? Where I'm going with that is, I am a husband, I'm a father, I am now a grandfather, and I don't know what any of those things are from experience. I wasn't raised to see what a husband or what a good father is supposed to be like. I wasn't, even the idea of being a man, like there was never a day where somebody told me you're a man now and any of that kind of stuff. So as a Western man, as I operate in and out of my day and through my personal relationships and professionally and all that other kind of stuff, what do we do, man, when we almost got to fake it until we make it because we don't, we're not necessarily qualified for a lot of the roles that we find ourselves in?
That's a good question. And I don't think it's about what do we do per se, because I don't think there is a perfect map. I don't think there's something where it's like, this is the right way to do it, because everybody's different. Every situation is different. But what I find is if you get out of your own way a lot of times and you really tap into your own guidance and wisdom, you already know what to do. I work with all these men so often where they come to me and they have a specific problem and it's chunked down. And what I mean by chunked down is they're in the weeds. Like, what do I do? What's the strategy? What's this and that? And so often, if you just turn the nose up, like to use the airplane metaphor, turn the nose up, get above the clouds, and you see it from a higher perspective, once they get out of their own way, they already know what to do. So a lot of it is, well, if you were doing it to the best of your ability, what would your own inner knowing say to do? And the other thing also would be, if you could do it any way that you wanted to, and you were the one that were actually sovereign, and you're the one that could control the direction of this thing, how would you do it based on your own knowledge? What happened with me, like as I was talking with a gentleman one time, he was an airline pilot. He was a captain of an airline. And he wasn't just like a pilot. He was the captain of all. So he was training the pilots how to be the pilot. And he was the man. And he had to be responsible for everybody on the plane, all the lives there. But not only that, but everybody underneath him. So he's hyper, provide, protect, like everything a man should be. And he comes to me and he goes, what do I do? because when I go home, my wife and kids walk all over me. And I turn into Clark Kent. I turn into the nice guy when I go home. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Who are you when you're at work? He's like, man, I'm in charge. I'm in command. I'm this, I'm that. I'm like, well, who are you when you go home? He's like, meek, mild, nice guy, people pleasing. I go, what happens if you take the captain home? He's like, I never thought about that before. I'm like, well, what's the captain do? He's in charge. He decides. He's like firm but kind, and he's make sure. I'm like, well, isn't that what your wife and kids want at home? So what I was saying before is, what I was trying to get to is, a lot of times you're already doing those things in a different context. And so a lot of the game is taking who you are in one context and bringing it to another and then making it work there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does. Man, to be able to take that, for a lot of us as men, man, we find ourselves professionally being something that we're not necessarily at home. And, and the challenge is the dichotomy. And as you were saying that, I'm going to be totally honest. The first thing when you said, what happens if he brings the airline pilot at home? First thing I was thinking, he's going to get kicked in the face. They're going to say, you can leave all that on the airplane, man. We don't want all that around here. I mean, a lot of us, we got to be those things at work because we can't be those things at home. But the challenge is to incorporate, and I get exactly what you're saying. I totally agree in terms of incorporating all of those things into who you are there and who you are here. Ironically, one of our more recent guests is professionally the guy you were just describing. I mean, the pilot of all pilots, the trainer of pilots, guy that's flying for 30 some years and one of the greatest guys I know. And so, for him to have that pilot persona that he has is the guy I know outside of the cockpit.
Yeah. Now, what I mean is, it's not necessarily bringing that same personality home, but take the characteristics, what makes them. So it's the presence, the awareness, having everything handled, the ownership of it, right? So it's not go around and demand your family do everything like you maybe would on the airline, but it's the principles of leadership and ownership and being able to be present and be there and kind of be able to be the calm in the storm, those types of things. And by the way, you're never one person. Who you are with me is different than who you are with Jason when you guys are, off air, versus you're different when, who you're with your loved ones and your spouse, different when you're at church or in the community. So there's always these small, different micro variations of you, but it's choosing to select when you use those aspects of you. In the rest,
is that okay for us to be a little bit different in different contexts? Well, I mean, is that an okay thing, or are we to strive? I'm asking. I genuinely, I don't know. Or should we strive to be the exact same thing everywhere to everyone?
So who you are at your core is going to be basically the same thing, but you're going to bring out different aspects of you. So they say the greatest professional wrestler is the version of them with the volume turned up a little bit. So Kirk, when he's on a romantic date with his wife, is not going to be, super amped up and on, energy drinks and screaming and yelling, right? There's going to be a different version of you. Likewise, if you're at church, you're going to be a different guy. But if you're at a sports game, you're going to be a different guy. But it's all still authentically you. The danger comes when you start to be someone that you're not, or you're putting on a mask, or you're trying to overcompensate in some way. It's like, so there's the nice guy in school where he buys the girl flowers. And this happened to me. I had a crush on a girl. I bought her a Dairy Queen ice cream and I brought it and it melted because I took too long to get it into the school and all that stuff. And, I like you as a friend, not as a boyfriend. What do guys do though? They go, well, I got to go to the other end of the spectrum and pendulum and be opposite of what I was.
Yep.
No, so it's not being this way versus being that way. It's what's the highest intention of both of those things. And then that's you. So what's the highest expression of you? And then however it comes out, that's fine, but it's still you.
I'm glad we're talking about this because I know Kirk and I have both had this experience because, I mean, you can't be on all the time. You can't be that guy all the time. Sometimes you got to rest and relax. Sometimes you go. And me being kind of an ambivert, I have my introverted moments where it's like I'm all on and then I want to go hide in the cave and like relax and recharge. And so there's been many moments, and I know Kirk's had this too, where we're on, we put on these events and we're talking on stage, we're doing a radio show, and then off, we're quiet, we're chilling, we're relaxed. People are like, who are you? Are you that guy or this guy? And it's like, well, both. It's just, and it's like one of the things I learned through personal development. You have your base personality, and it's kind of like what you're talking about, that core thing. This is the core of who you are, but you have aspects. And the best, most successful people are able to pull out the proper aspects or the things that are needed at the time. Do you need to be the leader now, or do you need to be the follower? Do you need to be the supporter? Do you need to be the one promoting this guy? It's like what's needed right now. And I think, to your point, a lot of times if you get stuck in that one thing, then you're leaving all the other tools and ingredients on the table, so that you're not being the best version of yourself. So, in your experience working with men, what is probably the number one thing that most men are struggling with? Is it just their potential not coming out, or is it really them not knowing what to do?
It's they think they don't know what to do, but the problem isn't really the problem. A lot of men think it's habits. They think it's morning routines. They think it is, I got to do more. I got to make a New Year's resolution. I'm going to declare I'm going to make a change today, and then it's all going to be different, and take massive action. And then what happens a week later, a month later, you burn out, right? So it's like the surface level problem is the symptom. I think the real challenge is they're being who they're being, not because that's who they authentically are, but because they're living through layers and layers and layers of conditioning, and they're trying to get past all of that. There's this version of them they know is the real them, but they're not able to fully make it happen, and they think they have to do more work, but really there's a split somewhere, or there's a misalignment between consciously what they want and then unconsciously what they're trying to protect themselves from. And so as long as you have that split, you're going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or you're going to make a little bit of progress or self-sabotage, right? So a lot of the work that I do, it's getting rid of that unconscious inner conflict between where you want to go and then what you're secretly protecting yourself from.
Nice. Well, I mean, we're getting close to the end of this segment, but I know when we come back, I want to definitely dig into, like, because you went to the WWE, you got rejected, like what happened there after that, and then how you get here. But to what you're talking about, we got a couple minutes for this segment, but like when it comes to that sort of like, I don't know, but you really do. I know, I think it was Tony Robbins said, well, if you did know, like when somebody says, I don't know what to do, it's like, well, if you did know, how can some guys, like, what would be a couple nuggets of like, if a guy thinks he doesn't know, what can be some tricks or tools he can use to kind of put himself in that place of, well, maybe I do know.
Ask yourself, number one is, what's your outcome? Because a lot of people just do action and have no idea why they're doing it. And it's action for the sake of just doing something, and it's not actually productivity. What's your outcome? And then if that's your outcome, why do you want that outcome? Give yourself a little bit of momentum, motivation for it, and then start to take action towards what your ultimate outcome is, not just action for the sake of action.
Nice. So having that goal and then moving towards that, not just chasing cars because they're moving.
Yep. And then it's also acting as if. So I talked to Kirk. I'm like, well, if you were the guy that was already living that, and you get out of your own way, what does your instinct tell you to do? A lot of guys gaslight themselves, and they don't realize that their instinct knows a lot more than they think they do.
Yeah. Right on. You got one for a minute. I got a minute left, Kirk. What you got?
The whole idea of us having what I think, what I would describe what you just saying as the intuition to know, or the guts to know, or the thing down in us to know kind of what that next step is, or what I should be doing in this moment. Most of the guys that I know, we know what we should be doing, and we definitely know when we're not doing what we should be doing, which is being our authentic self, whether it's our personality or our purpose or whatever it is. And so, I think to ask yourself, kind of, if I did know, what would I do? And to lean on your intuition, or to lean on your guts or your instinct, man. I think there's some validity to that. Culture tries to take that away from us as men, I think, but there's some things inherently in us as men that will be the guiding factor, or the guiding force to where and who we should be.
Well, speaking of leaning, let's lean into this break. We are the Madmen of Masculinity. This is KLDC, and we'll be right back. Boom. Yeah, let's get into your story of this next one. I want to hear how you got from there to there, because I'm sure that'll be impactful for a lot of the guys. They'll be like, well, he lost his dream. What happened then? And then, how do you get there to there?
And I think I'll be able to answer a lot of the questions through that were coming up.
That's awesome.
Them. Yeah.
That's awesome. I like that. Because, us guys, we like to learn through story.
Yeah. For sure.
We learn through that story.
No doubt.
You ready, Kirk? You hydrated?
Yep. Yep.
Get back in the camera, man. You look far away. Get that big
Nah,
head up there.
man. I want to hide in the background. I want my Clark Kent. I want to be my Clark Kent. I'm a Superman right
All
now.
right. All right. Call him out, folks. Call him out, y'all. And we're back.
Yeah.
Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC, Mile High City. We're talking
Yeah.
to Jared Ganem. What's
Yeah.
up, man?
Man, so
were
you
the man.
you were a wrestler, and
The
now all of
man.
a sudden you're here on Mad Men of Masculinity. There's got to be some mile markers in between on
There's
that
some steps
journey.
that
You
happen
know,
between there.
I mean, first of all, I mean, what's your pivot from that moment? But then besides that, what kind of what kind of work does that lead you to today?
I alluded to this earlier. So when you lose something big like that, wrestling or a career like the military or airline NFL player, you don't just lose the thing. You lose your purpose in life because your mission is to be the wrestler or whatever it is. And then you also lose your identity. And I don't know about you. That's a recipe for disaster because if you don't know what your purpose is or what your identity is, it's like nothing else really matters. So there's something that I did. It's called the 7 levels of self-mastery. I'll teach it to you real quick. But so number one, the highest level, everybody's going to have a strong purpose, right? So you have to have a strong purpose. A lot of the reasons why people don't get what they want to get is they don't even know what their true north is, where they're heading, or why they want it, right? So it's like they just start to take action. They say, I want to be successful, but they don't define what success means. They don't have a finish line. Or they say, I want to be more healthy. I want to lose weight, but they don't set the goal of what the finish line is. So a lot of people have a vague concept of, I want to be happy. I want to be fulfilled, but it's a really nice word that doesn't have a real definition to it. So you have to know where you're going, what your finish line is. But then the next thing underneath your purpose. So if you put purpose number one, underneath that's your identity. And so identity, a lot of people, they know, maybe they even know where they want to go, but they don't feel like they're the person that can make it happen. Well, I'm so far away from that. It's someday. Or they go, a part of me knows that I can make it happen, but a part of me feels like I can't. And there's this internal split where there's the outcome, but they don't feel like they can make it happen. So there's like an internal identity conflict. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, dealt with it.
It's purpose, identity, but then underneath that, now it's your mindset. Now, the thing is, everybody always says, fix your mindset, change your beliefs. Everybody's aware of limiting beliefs. Any coach that's been to any seminar is going to quote on Facebook with the big red text, you got to change your beliefs and all like that. But who's ever tried to change your beliefs and they grow back and they don't change long term? Put it this way, your unconscious mind, it's breathing you right now. You can control your breathing. But the second you get distracted, what happens? Your breathing starts to happen automatically again. So people are trying to consciously change their beliefs, but they go right back. Here's the number one reason why is because their identity hasn't changed yet. Their identity is on top of the belief. So they're trying to be like, I believe this, I believe that. But their identity is saying, no, you don't. Or your beliefs are really tied by your unconscious autopilot. And your unconscious autopilot is all that stuff that came into you. It's significant emotional events. It's internal conflicts. It's things that got into you between 0 and 7 or 7 and 14 a lot of the times. Most likely it's even younger than that. And this conditioning, what it does, it makes you want to achieve success. But the reason why you want to achieve success is to avoid failure. Or I want to be healthy, but to avoid being sick like my parents were. And so now your motivation is primarily moving away from something you don't want. So here's how it ends up manifesting in people. You either don't have a purpose at all or don't know what it is. So it's hazy or you don't know what it is, or maybe you have a strong purpose. But then the identity either doesn't align or there's a conflict where part of me feels like I can, part of me feels like I can't. And then you're trying to consciously change your beliefs, but your identity is telling you that's not true, or the beliefs are controlled by something deeper.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean,
So-
there's one of the things I've done where they talk about that, 80% or 50% of your personality is from 0 to 4. You get 50% of your personality 0 to 4. Most of us don't even remember 0 to 4. I barely remember, 7, 8, 9. So it's like, how can you say that I can change my beliefs when I don't even really know what I gained, what half of my belief system is from 0 to 4?
And there's not even any words for it half the time, because when you touch a hot stove, when you're 0 to 3 and you maybe don't have language, you don't go, oh, wow, that stove is hot. Maybe I shouldn't touch it. You go, and then you move away from it. And it's an internal feeling in your nervous system. Do you know what I mean? So a lot of this stuff, you're trying to talk it over. You're going to therapists, or you're trying to, talk about it, like with trying to fix your beliefs, but there's not even a word for it half the time. How can you get something when you don't even know how to put it into language? So when all this stuff happened to me, I lost the wrestling thing. And the first thing was I was trying to figure out what my real purpose was. Now, anytime that you're doing something, an occupation, it's never the vehicle itself. It's always what you think the vehicle is going to give you. So it took me a while to figure this out, but I never actually wanted wrestling. I wanted to be able to make a contribution because I wanted to make a book someday like that guy did. I wanted to go inspire some kids somewhere that he could make something happen. So it was about, well, can I do something, make something of my life, and then turn around and help people? It wasn't a 9-to-5 desk job. It was creative. There was a variety involved in that. So like, okay, what were the components of the wrestling that I wanted, and how can I find that somewhere else? Variety, you could make some money. There was travel. You could make a difference. You made an impact. That turned into video production. So I started doing live event video production similar to this, but I would do it for sporting events, for UFC Fight Pass, things like that. I have the camera cranes and everything. But as time went on, I was married to my college sweetheart. I had a great place to live. If I kept making the money I was going to make, I knew I'd be really where I'd want to be. I'd be set for life. I was feeling great. And then all of a sudden, I went home to tell my wife one day, I'm like, here's the news. We're going to be set if I keep going down this trajectory. And I turned the corner and I looked in her eyes, and the lights were on, but no one was home. And I could tell she just was not conscious at all. And come to find out, she had a major drinking issue that she was hiding from me. She was a closet alcoholic for years, and it was starting to get worse and worse and worse. I realized, like, you could have all the success in the world if you don't have your family or your family's health. None of that matters. And so she's going in and out of rehab. I'm a nice guy. I'm trying to rescue her like crazy. I'm going down with the ship. I'm stress eating like crazy. And then my biggest client, and these are big. This isn't like take a camera somewhere. This is, you got to ship stuff. You got overseas shipment. You got crew, everything. My biggest client just starts to slowly pay me less and less and less. And I don't want to stop doing it because I got bills to pay. And then he just stops paying me altogether. Now I'm on the hook for close to 6 figures in the red. And I got to figure, I had no financial management skills at the time. And then plus on top of that got even worse. So now every job I was doing was paying for one that was 6 months earlier. And at my worst, I end up close to 6 figures in debt. I end up 80 pounds overweight. My wife was going in and out of rehab. I finally get divorced. So I'm divorced, depressed, overweight, bankrupt, and lose the business. And I'm at rock bottom. And the biggest thing that made me so upset, though, was I knew better, because I had been going to all the seminars. I had been reading all the books. I had knew all the stuff. I knew that I had to fix my mindset. I was doing the incantations and trying to fix my beliefs, and I couldn't get myself out of it, and I couldn't figure it out. And that was the most frustrating thing.
Yeah, it sounds like I had a similar experience, and something I've recently came to, like, an aha moment. But yeah, you go to all this stuff, but when that, like you said, your identity and your beliefs don't resonate. Like, I went to all the seminars, and there's this voice in my head, like, well, that's great for them. It's not going to work for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's because there's that inner dialogue. I mean, one of my biggest fears was I always self-sabotage when it came to, I wanted to be on stage. And you were even talking about setting goals and what you believe the goals were and what does that look like? Because I always wanted to be an author and a speaker. And then I became those things, but they weren't Tony Robbins big. They weren't, millionaire big. But I still did it within my box that I had created for myself. Like, this is just big enough, because there was this terror inside of me of, well, if I get too big, then I'm on the pedestal, and then I'm going to be crucified or ostracized or judged or something like that. Like, so I got to keep it small. And that all came from being, probably 2, 3, 4 years old. And something happened where I was being too big and got shut down. And then my unconscious mind went, well, don't do that again. Stop being yourself.
Right. Now your unconscious mind, its number one job is to keep you safe. And so here's the catch-22. Because you're alive right now, the strategy worked. And so what happens is, a lot of times, the first time something happens, you're big, and then you're told to play smaller, and you do, and you survived. And it's the first time your mind goes, excellent strategy. I'm going to lock that in. I'm going to keep doing it on autopilot, because your mind does not like to make new decisions too often. It wants to save as many calories as it can, and it just shortcuts the thing. So a lot of times we have to go back and find the root cause of where it even happened in the first place. So for me, I was so angry at myself because I was like, I know better. And by the way, to make it worse, I was certified in every coaching methodology in the book. I was obsessively studying this thing. I was taking on free clients just to like get better. They're like, oh man, I crushed it. I made 30 grand this month. I'm like, I'm like trying to pay my rent, and I got creditors coming breathing down my neck. It was the most incongruent thing ever, and I couldn't figure out why. But then I found out like it wasn't what I was doing, it wasn't what I knew. It all came down to my identity, but my identity was all because of my early conditioning 0 to 7. And so this is something, it was so unconscious, and I knew about it consciously. I grew up knowing it, but I was never upset about it. But it doesn't matter what you consciously know. It doesn't matter if you think you process something. It's what your nervous system's telling you. And so I was adopted as a child, as a baby. And my parents weren't like, hey, surprise, you're not our kid. They like, oh, we chose you. We love you. Like from the time I had language. So it was never an issue. Never had any desire to go meet my other family. Nothing like that. Totally congruent with it. But then I'm asking myself, I'm like, well, why am I not getting the results I want to get? And I realized I go, every result I'm either getting or not getting is because of something that I'm doing or refusing to do. And I go, well, why would I be doing or not doing certain things? Well, it's because of who I think I am identity wise. And I go, well, what's controlling my identity? It's like, well, who I believe I am. Well, I go, where did that come from? I go, it's all your conditioning from childhood. But then I go, wait a minute, my conditioning from childhood, there's not 1 ounce of me that's genetically similar to my parents. So I go, what are you talking about? It's my conditioning. And then I had an epiphany, like the wrestling thing. I'm in the ring, I'm one way, and I'm out of the ring, I'm a different way. I go, if I would have grown up with that other family, who would I have been? I go, interesting. And there was a place that I stayed in for 6 months. It was a woman. It was almost like a foster. It wasn't like an adoption agency. It was a foster woman. She took care of me for 6 months. So I was born in Beirut, Lebanon. I was held in Cyprus, Greece, and I came to the United States. I'm like, I would have been a different guy in Beirut. I would have been a different guy in Cyprus. I was a different guy in Massachusetts. I go, so who's the real me? And I had a doorstop in there because most people they assume their identities themselves. But it made me think. I go, well, what's nature? What's nurture? What's really me? What's not me? Is my identity really a decision? Where does all this stuff come from? And I was like, I want to get rid of anything that's not authentically me. And I started purging all this stuff. And it's crazy. When you get rid of the root cause of where the unconscious blocks come from, it's like a slingshot, where all of a sudden the little bit of work that you used to do that got you some results gets you all the results because you no longer have any internal resistance anymore. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. That is awesome. I'm so glad that you said that. This is the end of the third segment. It's like, boom, let's end it on a bombshell. So we'll be right back. We're taking our third break, and we're coming back for the fourth quarter. We are the Mad Men of Masculinity. This is KLDC. Boom. That was like right on time. It was like, boom. Right at 30 minutes.
Yeah, I could sense you pulling back. I'm like, oh, so I got to end it right here. He can hit the brake.
Was awesome. Yeah. That was awesome. He's done this before.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man.
Thanks, man.
That is good stuff.
Yeah, so fourth quarter, we'll get into like the work you're doing and how people can find you and stuff like that. Because I mean, it's so congruent with so much of the stuff that we talk about. It's just purpose and passion. Oh, that's something we could probably ask you about, because a lot of times we talk about finding your passion and your pain. Like when you dig back into the childhood, when you dig back into those traumas, then you find that purpose and passion because you're like, oh, I know this and I want to fix this.
Yep. Let's do it.
Yeah. Great setup. All right, here we go. We're back.
Yes, we're back.
Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC. Oh man, we got a good one here today, man. Y'all, I'm telling you, I'll tell you what. I mean, you need to go back and hear this whole conversation on YouTube or Facebook, whatever the video version of it. That way you'll get to see at least what we look like too. But obviously you can check the guys out, Mad Men of Masculinity on YouTube, Facebook, all of the above. This has been a pretty deep conversation, man. We could, sometimes it feels like we go so fast, man. There's so much that it's like a scratch and
We could talk
sniff,
about it.
man. It's like, man, we could just go on and on and on. But
We talked
so,
to Duke
Jared,
for a
my
week.
thing is, my thing is, I firmly believe that sometimes the end of your rope is the beginning of your fuse. You've been to the end of your rope. You just described that. How do people find the spark that they need for the beginning of their fuse?
100%. I believe that who you are now is the sum total of all of the conditioning that you've had from the past, but then it's also what you believe about the future, right? So for example, if you think you put a GPS in your car, it's got to know, number one, where you are now, and number two, where you want to go. Well, if you unconsciously think there's a dead end, it's going to take you one way. If you unconsciously think there's a future there's something that you're looking forward to, it's going to reroute you a different way. But here's what happens. People have both a bungee cord tied to their past and a rocket ship tied to their future. And so they're trying to apply the thrust to move forward, doing actions, morning routines, incantations, trying to change their beliefs. And it doesn't work because they're anchored to the past. So what I found is if you chop off all the stuff from the past and then you put something out there instead in the future that's really going to compel you forward, now you have something that's really going to work for you. I think where most people go wrong is they either focus solely on the past and stay there, they focus solely on the future and stay there, or they ignore all of it and they try to no, come on, get yourself in a good mood, change your mind, reframe yourself in the present, but they're ignoring all of it. If you work in all three time zones, you get a holistic change across the whole thing. So what happened with me, number one, is leverage. It's 3 a.m. one night. I'm in an argument with my I was divorced. I'm broke, but I have a new girlfriend. She's arguing with me. She's like, well, I didn't sign up for this. I was not anything like what you would want a masculine man to be, leading nothing. I had no finances, no nothing. And I'm like, if I don't figure this out now, I'm going to lose everything. And the problem was I could hope that she would have been nicer to me. I would have recreated it with another relationship because of who I was being. And that's when I found out everything I told you. I'm like, well, who I'm being, it's my conditioning. And so I put myself into the future. I'm like, you ever see the movie Click with Adam Sandler? How he just fast forwards on autopilot through his life, and all of a sudden he's like, it's the rain's falling down, he's passed out on the cement. I'm like, that's gonna be me if I don't change something right now. But then I go, wait a minute, if that future version of me is a possibility, but I also know that I have potential, then that must also exist too, right? Doesn't it? So I go, what would happen if I just did what, first of all, I knew that I was supposed to do, but what if I took that future version of me, looked at him, and then role modeled myself and basically became my own replacement, for example. And I'm like, well, that ideal version of me, I say I have potential. I know what I want to be. I want to be in shape. I want to be the man. I want to be attractive. I want to, coach people. I want to go speak on stage, all this stuff. If I was living as that guy, what would his purpose be? And it was the same purpose. I wanted to help a bunch of people. Well, if that's your purpose, who would I have to identify as? I was saying, I am a loser. I am a failure. Now I have to say, I'm a wrestler again and go to the gym like I used to. I'm an inspiration. I'm an example. Okay. If that's your purpose, that's your identity, what would your mindset have to be? There's always a way. This is all like the fuse is the start of your breakthrough, like what you were saying before, right? Everything's happening for me, not to me, all these beliefs. And then I brought it all the way down. Instead of like, I don't have a purpose, don't really know who I am, what's my mindset, let me do a bunch of stuff in hopes it works. I aligned my purpose to my identity, to what my mindset would have to be, and then brought it all the way down and then built my rituals around that. And everything was congruent after that. And there was a little bit of work I had to do because that was the spark right there. I still hadn't gotten rid of the past stuff. But once I figured out how to do that, like I told you, it's a slingshot. All the conditioning cleared. And when I was able to do that, the weight came off. I lost all the weight in less than 12 months. I started making six figures again in revenue. I didn't want to make six figures coaching people at first because I didn't feel congruent. I refused to promote myself until I handled my own stuff first. But I started making six figures annually in a career first. And then once I had my stuff handled, I started working with people after that. I turned my relationships around, my internal congruence and my own masculine self-worth, my own masculine mastery. It changes how women and my girlfriend and my partner, how they all relate to me now. Do you know what I mean? And it's all because of stuff that happened that night. but it was a combination of bringing that future self into the now and then clearing the old identity from the past and getting rid of the residual.
So would you say, I mean, because that almost sounds like that Matthew McConaughey speech of like, my role model is me in 10 years. But I know one of the things Kirk and I have talked about a lot, and we even kind of promote, is that when you model yourself after that future version, your past becomes less of an anchor and more of like fuel. Like it's like you have to forgive yourself your past, but also know that it's a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
And so can you speak a little bit about that? Because I think a lot of times people, man, I got to change this past. I got this dump truck, it's 18-wheeler full of crud that I'm dragging behind me, but I'm supposed to make that okay. And, just get rid of that or turn it. But you can turn that fertilizer into fuel, but it's a matter of like,
you don't have to make it okay. You don't really have to fix anything. There's nothing wrong with you. Just, you got to realize that the way that your unconscious mind has worked since you were a child, 0 and 7, everything that's happened to you has just been downloaded into you. But here's the thing, right now, you're listening to me, you're watching me on the Zoom screen, and you're hearing my voice here. But also there's a ring light there. There's the air conditions humming behind you. If people listen to you on the radio, they're in the car. They might not be seeing what's behind, all sorts of stuff. You're filtering out 90% of the information that's around you. So when you're in an event and you're 3, you're 4, and perfect example, the first girl I asked out, 5 years old in kindergarten, do you want to be my girlfriend? Her mom told her, I want to be your friend, not your girlfriend. Stock phrase, right? But I'm focused on it. I lock in, and that's how it is for the rest of my life. And I owned that until I was 20. But I ignored everything else around me. I ignored the other girls on the playground. So all of this stuff that happened to you, significant emotional event, there's 90% of the information that's not there. So if you can go back in time and get the lesson or the learning, your unconscious thinks that by holding you in a trauma response or holding you in a limiting belief, it's keeping you safe. It's really not. What it has to remember, though, is its primary job is to keep you safe. And the fastest way to keep you safe is to get the lesson and get the learning so you don't do it again, not to keep you in that fight or flight state. So a lot of the work that I do, I work with people for 3 days, 2 hours a day. It's rapid. It doesn't take decades or years or even months. We find out, detailed personal history. Where's all the stuff coming from? Where are all the patterns? Then we find out what's your unconscious autopilot. They see it on the paper. And then we take another day and we just go right back to all the past stuff, clear everything, reframe it, show them what really happened. And then they will feel it in their nervous system. It goes away. And then once it no longer has a hold on them, it's like they woke up from a lucid dream and like, oh, I remember that, but that was kind of a weird dream. I'm happy I don't experience that anymore. And then now you bring the future self in and you anchor it to the now, and then you create an action plan. People get lifetimes worth of work done in hours, and it's been transformational.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And the foundation of all that, even back to where we started, being authentically you, I think comes in mining out what the authentic version of you is, as opposed to painting on what the authentic version of you is. When I see people, for example, when I see people try to become David Goggins by cussing a lot, that's not it. Like just because every other word is a cuss word, I'm not dogging David Goggins.
He's earned it.
I listen to both of his books. But when I see people doing that, it's like, man, that doesn't make you, somebody that can get through buds training, but that's just not authentically you. And so, like I said, when people try to paint on who they think they should be, in their authenticity, as opposed to working with or getting with somebody like yourself that can help them discover and go back and like I said, mine out of the mine of MINE, the mine of their past, their experiences, and all these other kind of things. Man, I think that's where you get the authentic you truly from.
I've worked with over 100 men now over the past year and a half, 2 years. And I've had the privilege of now 6 months later, a year later, just checking in, seeing how they're doing. In every single case, once you get rid of the stuff that's holding them back, it's like removing a thorn from them. Once you remove the thorn, they already know what to do anyway. Like they come in with this big problem, and then we don't even really work on the problem at first. We just clear all the stuff in the way. And then you'd be surprised, the stuff just naturally resolves itself by the time that we're done. And it's like, I don't even remember why I even thought that was important in the first place. And then I'll come back 6 months later, a year later. Not only that, but because now the thorn's out, they're able to heal, and it's continued to grow. It's continued to improve after that, and it's continued to get better. So my whole belief is there's nothing wrong with you. You just got to clear the disturbance there, or get rid of the thorn. And then once you do that, you already know, like your higher self, your higher wisdom already knows the path.
Yeah. Even to Kirk's point, like so many of us are spending most of our lives covering up, painting over, putting masks over who we really are. And if you're into the weird metaphysical science and stuff like I am, you know that authenticity. I mean, we hear that love is the most powerful energy and love is the highest frequency, and it's got to be all about love. But they've already found out through, I think, the Heart Math Institute, that authenticity is 4,000 times more powerful frequency-wise than love. So stripping away, and we hear this sometimes, and I don't think if guys really listen to it, but stripping away all that junk back to who we really are, who we truly are, who that little boy meant to be, that want to be an astronaut, want to be a fighter pilot, that little boy with the dreams, getting back to that kid and healing him and doing that work brings out that authenticity, which turns into your rocket ship. I mean, Kirk, I don't know about you, but I think I would rather do 2 hours for 3 days than 20 years of therapy.
Well, I've done a lot of therapy. And shoot, it is what it is. But yeah, to be able to dig all that stuff out, man, that's that's the good stuff, man. That's where the meat is on the bone, for real.
Well, as we bring this plane up for landing, because I mean, unfortunately, we don't have a week and we can't do Joe Rogan style and talk for 4 hours like I want to. But how can people get a hold of you? How can they find your stuff? And when can we have you back on?
Yeah. So selfmasteryformen.com. That's the official website. So selfmasteryformen.com. There's a free book in there. There's a free guide. There's video trainings. Also, I have a Facebook community. If you want to come in and actually join in the conversation, facebook.com/groups/selfmasteryformen. Pretty easy. Love to chat with you. Love to see how I can help you. And I'm happy to come on whenever, man. I'm an open book. Let's make it happen.
Well, I love it. I love the deep stuff. I love going deep and talking about stuff that's going to help guys and help the Mad Men Mafia. And Kirk, you got anything, last things to say before we log out?
Nah, helping guys, especially through, finding their authenticity, finding their purpose, and kind of stripping away all the junk, man. I think the world will be a better place, for sure. A lot of men are just trying to be something to get something, be this to get a woman, be this to get a job, be that to, get respect or whatever it is, when none of that is authentically you, man. So, Jared, man, the stuff you're talking about, man, it's mind blowing, man. And it's so simple, it's revolutionary. And so I appreciate your work and your experience. And man, I'm looking forward to the next time we can talk on here about some stuff.
Kirk, thank you very much, brother. Much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Well, we thank you for coming on. We'll definitely have you back on. And until next time, we are the Mad Men and Jared, and we are out.